Okay, hello YouTube. In this video we're going to again talk about strategic and we're going to talk about positional and the difference between the two. So if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click on your notification icon. So generally speaking, when we talk about positional, what we're talking about is we're talking about pawn structure, doubled pawns, isolated pawns, weak squares, etc. When we're talking about strategic, we're talking about plans. So there are actually situations in chess where you can be positionally, like your position can be terrible, but you can be strategically winning. Okay, so this game is kind of a classic example of that. This was Robert J. Fischer versus Max Euwe, played in Leipzig back in 1960. So this was in my 6 memorable games, by the way. So if you have that book, you can go ahead and look up this game. It was a really good game to learn from. So Fischer was playing the white pieces. So it goes e4, c6, d4, d5. So we have a Caro-Kann, and then we have this exchange variation of the Caro-Kann, and then we have c4. So Fischer's playing the so-called Panov-Botvinnik attack. And then we have knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, bishop g4, c d5, knight d5, queen b3. And Fischer is going to be accepting some pretty nasty pawns here in a second. So bishop takes f3, gf3, e6 to hold the knight on d5, because what else are we going to do? Queen takes b7, taking that pawn on b7. Knight takes d4, bishop b5 check, knight takes, queen c6 check to make that king move from e7 from e8 to e7. And then we have takes, and then we have knight c3, bc3. So, what is the positional verdict here? Positionally, of course, White's pawn structure is terrible. I mean, White's pawn structure is basically lost. So, like, when we're talking about positional chess, isolated pawn, doubled isolated pawn, isolated pawn, isolated pawn. So whenever we're talking about positional chess, what are we talking about? We're talking about things that have nothing to do with plans. Because strategic chess is planning, positional chess is just things that are not part of those plans. So positional chess is everything else. So positional chess is your isolated pawns, your doubled pawns, your good pieces, your bad pieces, bishop versus knight, bishop pair, piece, any other type of piece correlation. This is positional chess. Strategic chess is just what's my plan and what's your plan. So we take my plan and we measure it against your plan. That's strategic chess, okay? So, positionally, is there anything good we can say about White's position? I mean, not really. He's got an isolated pawn here, double isolated pawns here, an isolated pawn, an isolated pawn. Not a single one of White's pawns are connected. And we have 4 pawn islands for White, and 2 really nice clean pawn islands for Black. Also, as far as good pieces versus bad pieces goes, everybody's got the same types of pieces here. Everybody has, 2 rooks apiece, everybody's got 2 queens apiece, and everybody's got a bishop, right? So what are some things that we can say about the position? Because White's position is actually quite a bit better here. So there's 2 things going on. There's a plan in place for White. White has a passed pawn. Yay! We have a passed pawn. So we have a plan. Like, we can take that pawn and we can push it to the end of the board. There's a plan, right? And Black's development on the king side, not so clear. It's not so clear how we finish it. It's really muddy. Black does not have a clear plan. And that's a problem. So White has a really clear plan. Hey, I'm just going to castle, maybe play bishop e3, put my rook on b1, maybe take my other rook, put it on c1, shove that c pawn down the board. I have a really clear plan. Black does not have a really clear plan. So White is actually strategically winning in this position, as it turns out. So Max Euwe plays queen d7, trying to exchange queens, and Fischer says, sure, let's play rook b1, let's exchange queens. Because after queens come off the board, again, White has a really clear plan. He's going to play like bishop e3, castles kingside, rook c1, c4, c5, etc. Whereas Black does not have a clear plan. How do you unwind your pieces without hanging something? How do you not hang this pawn? How do you get your bishop and rook out? So these are all problems. Max Euwe starts trying to solve these problems. Rook d8, bishop e3, putting pressure on a7, making it even more difficult to exact exchanges without hanging something. Euwe tries to do that anyway. He tries to exchange some pieces. Queen b5, rook d7. Let's hold that pawn. But that allows king e2, activation of the other rook. That gets rid of Black's only remaining active piece. Then we have king there, rook b8, and guess what? The king side never did get developed. So now it's continuing to get more awkward to develop that king side. So Euwe starts getting more and more desperate to come up with a way to develop that king side, to come up with a plan to unwind his pieces. So we have king c6, bishop takes a7, g5, just trying to play like bishop g7, just to get that bishop out. a4, bishop g7, rook d6, king d5, rook to b7, hitting the bishop again, bishop back to f8, rook back to b8, just torturing him, bishop g7, rook b5, king back to c6, rook b6, just torturing him some more, and then pushing the pawn up the board, a5, because white has a really clear plan. He's going to make a queen. Now he's going to make a queen with his a pawn, but, it could still be the c pawn. We got two passed pawns. So f5, rook b8, bishop b8, rook c8, a6, rook takes c3, rook b5, king to c4, rook to b7, hitting that bishop again, bishop to d4, rook to c7 check, king d3, rook c3, king c3, and again, tactics are the glue that hold chess together. We have bishop e5, and Euwe resigns because, of course, the bishop is pinned to the king, and if bishop takes bishop, we have a7, a8, can't be stopped. Fischer's going to make a queen, and that's going to be the end of the game. Okay, so we have this position where positionally white's doing terrible, and even in the final position, positionally white should be lost, right? We have all these isolated pawns and doubled pawns, etc., and black has a nice, pretty, clean pawn structure. No problems at all with black's pawn structure. One beautiful pawn island with gorgeous pawns in the middle of the board, and yet black is lost because strategically he could never get his feet underneath him. He never got into a position where he had a clear plan and a clear path to move forward. So again, that's the difference between strategic and the positional, and it is possible to have a position where positionally you're doing spectacular, but strategically you're lost. And that's what happened in this game. So anyways, I hope you found that video helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess, and I hope you can use some of these ideas in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.